Please welcome to the stage Edith Gonzalez.
Sneaking up on you. All right. So, never leave your phone unlocked and unattended with a group of people who think it's time for you to start dating again. I had been out of my really terrible relationship with this horrible, abusive, alcoholic partner for about 9 months. And I was feeling a little dating shy, so much so that my friend Lauren started calling me the Puerto Rican Mr. Spock, because I believe that no big decision in life should be made by something as capricious as feelings or love. I mean, I have human emotions. I just don't really enjoy human emotions. And I thought logic would be a much better way of deciding about your life, right? So I come into the room and I find my friend Eric with my phone. And he has rewritten my Bumble profile so that I sound like nice and maybe like I'm empathetic or slightly warm. I don't know. And maybe like I'm the kind of person who, if someone tells a joke, I actually laugh instead of going, oh, that's funny. And he's rapidly swiping right and left on people. And that is how I found myself heading downtown to go on a date with somebody that I did not choose. I like tall, dark, handsome, brooding artists, sort of like borderline alcoholic, not the actual abusive alcoholic, somebody really to balance me out there. And I found myself meeting up with this short, bald, sort of pot-belly, hairy back Englishman. So we meet up at the bar and we're having our drinks. And like I said, I do tend to approach things in a very sort of logical way. And so I asked him about his situation. And it turns out he's about 6 months behind me in his divorce process. And he starts to talk about his feelings. And so I ask him about his feelings. And he begins to be emotionally honest and really bearing his soul to me. And so we order food. And the food arrives, and I have this huge artisanal cheeseburger on a brioche bun. And and he has this sort of salad-y thing with kale and an egg on top. And as the food arrives, he asks me this really sort of deep, profound question about love and relationships. And he knows that I'm also going through this terrible divorce. And it's a moment of choice for me. When he reaches over and pulls off a piece of the brioche bun. Now, the boundaries of my plate have just been violated. And internally, I begin to freak out. When he takes the bun and he dips it into the egg on his plate, and I'm like, and then he turns and sets it back on my plate, and I realize it's for me. So I take that bite, and as I'm savoring that beautiful, buttery, creamy morsel, I realize that he's just given me the best bite on his plate. So I answer him honestly and from the heart. So as we leave, we're walking out of the restaurant, and he surprised me. He gave me a hug goodbye. I feel compelled to point out to you that he's English and I'm Puerto Rican, which means we are on opposite ends of the personal space and touch affection scale. So when he hugs me, I was surprised that he did it, but I was also shocked because it felt like the magnetic poles of the earth had switched, and a pulse of energy came from the center of the earth straight up through the bottom of my feet and out the top of my head. And I thought, oh, no good can come of this. So we start going out, and it turns out he's really awesome. And so so much so that when I decided, I haven't had sex in over a year, and this is the guy. This is the guy. So I invite him back to my apartment, and I have I'm so nervous. I have about 17 layers of clothes on, and the first time he comes over, we're there and we start making out, and I'm just like, oh God, in my head, I think about everything like it's, I'm a scientist, so I think about everything like it's data input and, analytical thing happening all the time. And I just was like, get out of here, just shh. And every time he kissed me, it was like time just stood still. Everything quieted, and I was perfectly in the moment. And we start having a great time around New York, and the sex is fabulous. Oh, so good. Who knew? Little English bald guys, my type now. So, and we talk all the time. He's an introvert, but he's really chatty with me. So we are hours on the phone with these sort of whiskey-fueled teenage kind of chats, and we start doing all kinds of fun things around New York. And then one day he says, so we're on the phone late at night, and he's like, yeah, so when I moved to Australia. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I need to leave my apartment at the end of this week because my lease is up, and I'm moving to Australia in a couple of weeks. So, okay. And we hang up, and I'm surprised by how completely disappointed and devastated and how much my feelings actually do work. And so the next morning, I call him up, and I'm like, hey, listen. Since you're going through the shitty divorce and I'm just through the shitty divorce, I have an idea for a social experiment. How about why don't you just move in with me for the next couple of weeks, and we crash and burn this as the perfect rebound for us both. And then you leave and you're on the other side of the world and we never have to speak to each other again. How bad could it be? And he says, okay. And he moves in with me. And I'm thinking, being me, this is a well-designed research protocol, because chances are in the course of a couple of weeks, he's going to be so annoying that I'm going to be thrilled that he's gone. So he moves in with me, and he starts to do these things that really are annoying. Like, he can't figure out how to regulate the temperature in the shower. So much so that I have to, with a Sharpie, write on the tile so he knows which direction to turn the hot and cold. He doesn't know how to make coffee. The guy's almost 50 fucking years old. You should know how to make coffee, even if you're English and tea is for wankers. So make some fucking coffee. And, yeah. So the other thing that he does is he washes the dishes in this way that's really where people, like empathetic people, are concerned about conservation and water and the earth. Where you take a basin and you fill it with water and you put soap in it and you wash the dirty dishes in that dirty water, and then you turn the water on with this tiny little trickle and you rinse the dishes under that tiny little trickle to conserve water, and the dishes are still dirty and gross when you're done with them. So I'm just sort of like, yuck. But the problem is, as I realized as he's doing these really annoying things, is that when he calls me into the bathroom in the morning to help him regulate the shower, I feel like he's just sort of flirting with me to see him naked so I'll get in the shower with him. And that happens, and it's really kind of nice. And that when he gets up in the morning and he makes coffee, I realize that he's taken a pencil and written in really, really tiny little letters at the base of the calendar that hangs over my coffee maker exactly how I like my coffee. And if he's up before me, he texts me and is like, want coffee? I'm in the bedroom. He texts me, want a coffee? And he brings it to me in bed. And when he's there washing the dishes like that in his little boxer briefs, and I'm looking at it going like, ugh, he turns around and he gives me this kind of wink and a little cheeky grin, and it just is charming. So the night before he's set to move to Australia, we stay up all night just drinking whiskey, and I've left the windows open a little bit because he gets really hot when he sleeps, and it's February. So we're in this nice little pocket of warm in my room, and we stay up all night making love, and And in the morning, in that sort of post-coital afterglow, I started thinking about Albert Einstein, because that's what happens to me after sex. And I think about Einstein saying, we can't solve our problems using the same thinking we used when we created them. So that maybe dating outside my type was a good thing. But I found myself in that situation of, in the quieting of my thinking and reasoning, I had created this space to feel something. And what I felt was I had fallen in love with him. And that morning, all I wanted to do was to tell him, I love you. But in true Star Trek fashion, I realized I had created my own Kobayashi Maru, the unwinnable scenario, because I loved him, but he was leaving. So I got up and I took a shower and I went to work without saying anything. And when I came home, he was gone and he had moved to Australia. So about 6 weeks later, I got a phone call and it said, "Hi, I made a mistake and I need to come back to New York." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, when are you planning on coming?" And he said, "Well, I'm calling to ask if I can stay with you, and I'll be there in 36 hours. So my little Grinch's heart expanded 3 times that day. And I said, "Of course you can come and you can stay with me." And so 36 hours later, he showed up on my doorstep. And the problem was that he didn't explain on the phone is that he was not coming back to be with me, even though he moved in with me for 5.5 months. He was coming back because his ex-wife messed up the sale of their house in New Jersey. So we were friends for a while in this nebulous kind of millennial way where you don't define what your relationship is. And sometimes it had benefits and sometimes it doesn't. I had asked him before he left to send me some data about how that social experiment had worked out for him. And on Valentine's Day, he had sent me an email. And his email had said that the social experiment had caused him to feel gratitude because it made him leave New York with happy memories instead of just the complete and utter breakdown of his marriage. And that he thanked me for opening my home and my heart to him. And it allowed him to think that maybe he could love somebody again someday. So when he was back, I had hope that this would, was going to be all romantic and Hollywood. But it was not. Eventually, I just said, "I can't do this anymore. You've become my best friend." For almost 2 years, he was the person I said good morning to every morning and good night to every night, even when he was 16 hours ahead in Australia. Until I just realized I was breaking my heart on that stone every day. So I just said, "Fuck you, get out, I hate you." And so he did. Thank you. Thank you. Finally, so I began to think, that experiment worked out really well for him. But what did I learn? I realized that I can't be, as much as I really want to be, the robotic Puerto Rican Mr. Spock. Like, that's my goal. But I can't really do that anymore. That going through this has actually made me maybe not think about and analyze things quite as much, make me feel a little bit more. So I've decided that I want to be the Puerto Rican Captain Kirk. And in that way, I can explore strange romantic worlds and go where I've never gone before.